60. You wouldn't have seen it, unfortunately, for the...
One of my friends from school suddenly started playing it, and then suddenly they brought me and another one in and asked if we wanted to try it out. We were like, sure, we can do that. And then we started playing a little bit. It was pretty fun, because at that time you had to really grind to get level 30, so we used like several months to get level 30, even though we were playing a lot. But I quickly figured out that it didn't work on my PC really. So every time I would have to play, I would have to go to my friends, and then I would rent his mom's computer, because that could take the game. We were struggling to beat the intermediate bots, so we would use like, I think it took us like half a month before we actually beat them. I was like, oh, this game sucks, we can't win. But then it's like kind of, if you keep grinding, then you will reach it there eventually.
This game is done. Team Singularity are out of here. Godsent take the win.
We're into our final game of the day, and it is just as important as our second one, which is Nordavind versus Godsent. Let's just set the scene for this particular matchup, because there's a lot that rides on this one game. If Godsent win, they are guaranteed a playoff spot. If Riddle lose a game and Nordavind win, this means they take second place in the group. And if Nordavind win, they lock at least third. I mean, that obviously was quite difficult to follow, but essentially, Godsent want this. Like, Godsent really want this, and if Nordavind get it, they're going to get themselves a better seeding. It's a very, very important game.
So actually, critically, it was if Riddle lost last game. Then
last game, yeah.
But because Riddle won that one, they've actually locked at least second. We're now at a point when Nordavind can't actually catch up with them. So that's kind of set the standing for that group. Riddle are ahead of Nordavind. It can't be caught up. So they can still catch XL. But for Nordavind, the main thing is if they win this one, they lock at least third, because they are still in a position where they can be caught up. Ents and Godsent are both only a point behind, and although there's a winning head-to-head for Nordavind against Ents, it is not the case against Godsent. So Godsent winning this would tie them and potentially force a tiebreaker for that third place spot.
But that's exactly that. If they can tie break for that first place, they're still going to guarantee that playoff spot, right? And I think it's an incredible journey from Godsent alone. Remember back when they first got started, we didn't even expect them to make it this far. Godsent was the team that everyone had first anticipated was going to make relegation, wouldn't stand a chance. And now we're here, Godsent versus Singularity, not Singularity, but Nordavind, and they might actually have a shot at making playoffs.
Okay, I need to kind of dial back in on Nordavind, though, because if I'm going to reminisce about how we've talked about Nordavind throughout the split, it has been, wow, this team is really good, to, wow, this team is, yeah, pretty good, to, wow, this team's really inconsistent. So, like, to me, I'm struggling, like what happened here with Nordavind? Like, what happened to make that kind of transition?
I feel like when it comes to Nordavind, there's only two teams in the league in general that I feel like they have figured out the way they want to play the game, and that's Fnatic and Nordavind. And they both have a very similar sort of style they want to play. Whilst Fnatic is the superior team here, they can play through every lane. I feel like Nordavind know that they want to play through Crispec, but a lot of times it doesn't work for them. I've heard that in their scrims, all the teams are trying, to dive Crispec, because if your win condition is literally your ADC, your opponent team will do everything to destroy your growth on that carry. If all you rely on is one carry, then one dive can make or break the game. Now, a lot of times, the problem with Nordavind has been not necessarily finding their win conditions, but their win condition is one. Crispec is the star of their team. They need to make sure that he gets to their power spike, and then they start fighting. I feel that they're very strong in the team fights, and this is what they need to focus on.
And I think you're highlighting the correct point. They need to wait for Crispec to be strong. But the problem is they haven't been recently. And this has been their problem that's really started to make them struggle, is they opt into fights they don't need to take when Crispec isn't strong enough, when Ericsson isn't strong enough, and then they end up getting absolutely minced. We've seen this against the likes of Riddle, against the likes of XL. Ultimately, they know how they want to play, they know what the win condition is, and yet they keep opting into these. Particularly Nulty is the biggest offender of that. We saw that Gragas game the other day where he's just trying to make engages onto the Nautilus of full champions when he should be playing a defensive role for his team. I think the concepts are there, but the execution's really gonna miss.
And I think he could bring that to the other round of the half of the table here with Seaboy and Godsent on the other half, because I actually think that Seaboy is the pillar of hope for Godsent. He's the one that's been most consistent. I'm actually fairly certain that he can be better than Nolty in the jungle. I think that lately he's been performing better, but going up against the rest of the map, there is where I start to have my doubts about Godsent. Yesterday, they looked better, and I would say that they might have a chance, but in the end, I am still going to give it to Nordavind due to them just having the better team in general.
But I agree with your point about Seaboy. I think particularly in his game the other day against Ents, he was stellar. He was really the driving force for it. From level 1, he ended up splitting the map, which favored Champion on the top side, gave him a free ride. And then when Taiki had no other option other than to start up the Dragon, he was there to counteract it. And I feel like Seaboy is actually considerably above Nolty in the current form. I think this isn't a matter of Seaboy matching him. I think he's just flat out the better player by several degrees. But I agree. The rest of the team is going to be the critical factor. But if we do see Seaboy taking over this early game, it could cause issues for the side of Nordavind, because for the most part, we've seen them struggle when they're behind. They often fall into these situations where they're down in gold, down in levels, and they just kind of flounder.
And the thing with Godsent that has taken me back a little bit is the fact that they can't necessarily manage their late game, like the wave management, their side lane rotations. They're not necessarily the best. Recently, they've showed a much better form, and I will stick again on what you guys have been saying, that Seaboy will 1v9 at the end of the day. And the problem here is that Nolty is one of these junglers that if his team is doing good, he looks good. If his team relies on him for Nordavind to do good, then he doesn't look as great, while Seaboy will do the utmost he can to make sure that Godsent is at a great state for them to fight. So I feel like it's not necessarily going to be around the junglers this game, it's going to be towards that bot lane, because if they can manage to get Crispec ahead, they will make it. But is Seaboy gonna make Crispec's life a hell? I think this is where it lies.
Actually, if I reflect on Godsent yesterday, that's maybe the best game I've seen them play or split. I don't know if anybody wants to contest that. So maybe even just if form is to come into play, if confidence, if momentum is coming into play, Godsent are looking pretty good. And this is, again, they've had 2 games back to back that are like must wins for them, realistically. And if they win both of these games this week, what an excellent finish to the season that would be. Guys, we're shortly heading towards draft, so we're going to go to a quick break. And when we're back, our final champion select of the night.
How come I keep reaching, but my arms can only stretch so far. Before I gotta give in. Sunsets, high rise, you know you're on the floor, diamonds. No matter what, we're gonna keep moving on. Burn this city down, we can take it on.
And we're into final draft of the night. Godsent, if they win, will guarantee a playoff spot. Nordavind right now locked into third. And it's Karthus banned immediately on the blue side here. We've seen bans, but no one's really picked Karthus up today either. I don't think many teams have had huge success with him in the NLC so far.
I think what's really going to be interesting is the jungle bans coming out here. We've already highlighted the jungle matchup between Nolty and C-Boy. Yesterday, C-Boy was playing the Graves, which great success too. I'm wondering what they don't want him to play.
And I think, honestly, the Karthus would sync up well with Pedersen just because it enables that priority in the bot lane. It allows them to run effectively. So I like that they're shutting that down. Volibear not going to be seen as a first pick, but a lot of that so far today. And it's now being banned away by Godsent. We're still seeing the likes of the Karma, the Ashe, the Ezreal, the Azir, Orianna, all available with the Thresh now being taken away. So again, playmaker for Pedersen, I think, is a big pickup based on how he played yesterday.
I also think it goes down to the fact that we are trying to keep Chrisberg as safe as possible. We don't want to opt into Tom Kencha or Braum, as we've seen people bully on. They want something they can feel comfortable going in head-to-head in the 2v2 matchup down the bot lane too.
Honestly, I feel like I almost don't want to see Chrisberg on Aphelios again. I think it takes quite a while, especially after 10-15, for him to really reach the power spikes. And since Chrisberg is such a strong AD, I would like to see him in something of like the likes of the Ezreal, of the Ashe, which, seen from the picks and bans, one of the two is going to remain open.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen Chrisberg play Ashe yet. I don't know if he's actually played it in the league or my short-term memory just isn't there. But Ezreal seems like more his kind of style, where he's got mobility to heal for himself. He got the spikes, 2 items and 3 items if they choose to fight for it. But Ashe, Karma, and Ezreal up and available here.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Ashe makes sense in a lot of regards because it offers that priority against Ezreal, but I could see the Karma coming through due to the flexibility. I think you have those options. Interesting to see the Bard banned away actually from Godsent. So clearly not wanting to give over that power to beat bot bully. And I
think we've got a draft redo. Yeah, I think we've got a draft redo.
Gonna have to hold on for that first pick even longer. But ultimately,
they couldn't decide.
Yeah, they couldn't decide. It was a bit too hard. Left too many power picks open. But I just think that the Bard one's a little bit interesting based on the fact that we could have potentially seen like a red side third pick for Pedersen again on that Bard because he had so much success on it yesterday and was a really big instigator in those plays. Obviously, we praise C-Boy heavily, but I think Pedersen was a really relevant factor in a lot of those skirmishes and finding the setup on the champion with the portals, with the ultimate as well.
I think it's going to be interesting to what they have planned then, because he looked great, as you said it yourself, right? Like, it would have been fine for a red side third pick under Bard here. So they obviously must have planned something else. They have seemed very, confident on social medias, all of the players and coaching staff from Godsent. So I'm hoping to see something great coming out for them now that they're banning their own priority picks away.
So the thing is, sorry, go ahead, Alexandro.
No,
I just wanted to add something on the Bard.
No, feel free. I was only going to give context to the delay, which was that Mummus is disconnected. So that's the only context I wanted to give a delay to. We're just going to be waiting a little bit to get back into Champion Select.
So back to the Bard discussion. I just don't see this being a champion that Chrisberg wants to have next to him, because the nature of the Bard is to roam around. You collect in your chimes, I think they're called meeps, chimes, whatever, the little aliens anyway, in the new skin. And I don't think Chrisberg likes sitting alone in a lane, especially after being told that they continuously want to dive him. You want to make sure that your support is there at all times, because when they see the Bard roaming, that could potentially be, the trigger for the opponent team to sort of potentially get a dive onto Chrisberg.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense. Potentially banning the Karma away. If you do see them take Ashe, you can opt to try and match them with a counter pick on that third pick, or you can alternatively take the Ezreal and have you support roam. I think that would make more sense to me, and I agree. I don't think Bard is the pick we'd necessarily expect to pair it with Chrisberg based on the play style that we do see for him. But ultimately, the options are on the side of Nordavind, and they have some versatility. I think they could honestly throw a bone towards Ericsson as well in the first 3 rotations at the first 2 picks. I wouldn't mind seeing them actually pick up something like the Orianna for Ericsson, because I think it enables him effectively. I think he can also use it to help Chrisberg out, given that shielding in the later team fights. And if C-Boy is playing one of these heavy engages, if Nolty's playing one of these heavy engages, then Ericsson can obviously use that shockwave to follow up. Not necessarily a first pick maybe, but with the Zia down, it does heighten the priority there.
We have also seen Ericsson be kind of uncomfortable on the Orianna. In the start of the split, we had that same scenario where they had to blind pick a champion. Orianna was open, she was in a great spot, and they get with the Zoe, and later we get the answer from Nordavind about, well, back then he wasn't too confident on this Orianna. So it's going to be interesting to see what they really want to go with here. I think it's going to be interesting with so many junglers open. I think Volibear was really the only one that got taken away. Yeah, you could argue Karthus is a flex, but other than that, there's a lot of priority picks for Godsent here. If you want to go with that Nidalee, if you want to go with that Graves for C-Boy, we're talking about a 1v9 performance. This might be the setup for it too.
So my question is that the style that we saw Godsent play yesterday was very kind of it was very kind of anti-TF, like map focused. It was side lane pressure. Is that the style that it suits Godsent? You know, sort of just having mid lane be a facilitator for both Champion and the bot side of the map, as well as C-Boy being able to roam free?
I mean, we spoke to Mikma yesterday, and he was quite demanding that they can play every style that they really want to. I'm not too sold on that idea yet. I want to see it out on the Rift before I believe it. I think it is through C-Boy. Often, they don't play towards Champion anymore. They did that in the beginning, but now they like to play through C-Boy, through Mikma, and then facilitate the bot lane to get objective control. Something they were really good at yesterday was securing a lot of neutral objectives.
I mean, it's a lot of confidence coming out as a team who has been extremely shaky and saying that you can play through every single lane you have, because I'll agree with Goldbog. I don't necessarily agree that they can play through every single lane, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you still do one style that suits you, then you can actually upgrade that and make that unbeatable, sort of like the likes of a Fnatic, right? Or Nordavind know they want to play through their bot lane. It has looked shaky for them, but at least they know what they need to work on to make that work. I feel like being sort of the bottom of the table team like Godsent has been until now, saying, oh yeah, we can play through everything. I don't know.
I think something that we have all been fairly, I guess, sort of we've really put a lot of sort of emphasis on is teams finding their identities, right? And teams having a specific identity that works for them, teams having an identity that they can play through. And so, you know, I think Godsent have been still figuring that themselves. We thought they were top focused team. We had that interview. They're like, no, we can play everything. And I agree with Trouble. I'm not entirely convinced with the displays that I've seen over the course of the split, but that whatever they did yesterday seemed to work for them, and that's what I'm looking for when we get to draft. Guys, we have to just give you a bit of extra info. We're still waiting on a player to reconnect, so we are going to go to a quick break. When we're back, hopefully we'll be into the draft and we'll be on with our final game of the day.
If you wanna find love, then you gotta have faith. The world is on your side. The world is on your side. If you wanna find love, then you got to have faith. The world will be your guide. The world will be your guide. No, I don't care. No one can tear you down. We'll lift you up. It's about here and now. You're gonna find love. Yeah, you're gonna be alright. If you wanna find love, then you got to have faith. The world will be your guide. The world will be your guide. No, I don't care. No one can tear you down. We'll lift you up. It's about here and now. Yeah, you're gonna find love. Yeah, you're gonna be alright. Yeah, you're gonna be alright. Yeah,
Sunsets, high rise, you know you're on the floor. Diamonds, good life, walking the golden door. Everybody knows that you wanted more, more. Ice cold to the touch, we're gonna burn it down. Bodies so hot until we hit the ground. Everybody knows that you wanted more, more. Say it's not my fault. I don't wanna talk about it, not tonight. No, you probably think about it, but it's fine. Playing all the same, you know there's no amount. 'Cause money makes the world go round. I don't see a problem till it makes me sick. Dollars by the minutes, I'ma spend it quick. No, talking me down, now I'm doing it now. 'Cause money makes the world go round. Sun-kissed on my lips, the way I want it now. Don't trip, never slip. They wanna take me down. Talk is never cheap, so you say it loud, loud. Say it's not my fault.
sun. It's the feeling, yeah, it's the feeling. We know what ain't gonna change, and we know the stars will never fade. We'll never walk away, make this our real life, just you and me, right where I want to be. Right where I want to be. Never letting go, never letting go. 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 Oh, watching the world go by under the moonlit sky. It's the feeling, yeah, it's the feeling. Sun-kissed and having fun, ocean to summer sun. It's the feeling, yeah, it's the feeling. We know what ain't gonna change, and we know the stars will never fade. We'll never walk away, make this our real life, just you and me, right where I want to be. Right where I want to be. Never letting go, never letting go. 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 Where I want to be.
Let the sparks fly into a summer night.
Hello, guys. You may see that we do not have a champion select ready to show you, and that is unfortunately because one of the players from Nordavind did not manage to reconnect. My dogs have just started becoming wolves in the middle of this. Did not manage to reconnect, and they are obviously howling for the sadness because this has got big implications. Actually, the fact that Nordavind lost, this means that Godsent guaranteed a playoff spot, and I believe that actually means that Ents are knocked out now. Someone can confirm that for me, but I believe Ents have really suffered because of this particular loss.
Yeah, so it was talked about earlier on the show, but basically when there's multiple teams tying up, we have what's called an aggregate head-to-head. So it'd be Nordavind, Ents, and Godsent. If they were all able to get to 5 points, would have Nordavind having a winning head-to-head over Ents. So despite the fact that Ents and Godsent have an even head-to-head, because between the three teams, they have the worst head-to-head ratio, Nordavind comes out in 3rd place, Godsent comes out in 4th place, and then Ents comes out in 5th place. So the end result we're going to have is that Ents cannot make any higher than 5th. Now, if they do win their game, it does mean that Godsent are locked into 4th place. So Ents can actually get a little bit of revenge on Godsent, but they cannot change their fate from here. So pretty impactful knock-on effect, but it does mean we have all our playoffs teams for Group A. So that'll be BTXL, Riddle, Nordavind, and Godsent.
Yeah, and so unfortunately that is the way that it went down, but due to the nature of online broadcasts, you can't control everything, and that is the way it goes. So unfortunately, Ents losing out here, and that does mean a victory for Godsent. They're going to secure themselves a playoff spot, and that does mean Group A is locked up for the 4 teams that we will find in those playoff spots. That is going to be XL, Riddle, Nordavind, and Godsent at the end of the day. Let's take a look back, though, guys. Let's take a look back at the replays. Let's take a look at the replays that we had today and go over some of the games that we have seen.
And honestly, I was so excited to see the Tricked versus Fnatic matchup. I had so much expectation going into this game, specifically for Tricked. I see them playing their game. They're playing their roaming. They have Eren with the global ultimate all over the map. And then there were some... I'll call them miscommunication errors with a lot of overextended players at times. And if there's any team that's going to slap your hand if you try to overextend it, it's going to be Fnatic. They're not just going to slap your hand, they're going to catch your hand off. And that's exactly what they did. The opportunity given to them, they just completely destroyed Tricked.
But I also think it was the first time where they got really punished in the early game when you saw how Dan got attacked. The bot lane suffered from it because they spent a lot of resources trying to help it. So that's going to be an interesting point if teams are picking up on that going into playoffs, if they're finding another point to attack Fnatic with. Obviously, going into the rest of the game, MNM coming out clutch, beating Barrage here, still not securing them, but keeping their dreams alive with just staying in the lead of not playing relegations.
I think it's been a bit of a wild ride over the last few days. We've still got a little bit to play for over in Group B, and we have obviously seedings to work through in Group A. But I think there was... You could split hairs between Ents and Nordavind, Ents and Godsent, realistically. Godsent had a huge resurgence at the end of this split and have managed to put themselves in a good position. But that group was always so close. Like, Group A was much closer than Group B overall. Absolutely ridiculous. You know, it could have swung either way for any of the teams in that particular group. But, you know, as we said, we are now just 4 games away from closing out the regular season and deciding all of the teams that we will see heading off into our playoff spots.
Yeah, and ultimately it was a close group, and Godsent found the right time to come online. And as much as it's unfortunate Ents' fate is sealed by a game that wasn't played with a forfeit, it was ultimately out of their hands from the point that they got to this situation. They needed to win that game on day 1 of this week against Godsent if they wanted to keep their hopes alive and in their hands. So a bit of an unfortunate one, but we still have a lot of things to sort of decide in Group B, particularly, you know, the direction of MNM, Barrage, and Dusty, deciding who's going to be in playoffs and who's necessarily going to be avoiding that relegation spot at the bottom.
So, guys, let's take a look at the play of the day. So we have actually selected a play of the day here. Dan, you're going to walk us through this.
Yes, I mean, this one was just huge for me. Aesthetic in this game. You're 4v5. You've lost your Cogmore in a composition playing around him, and you managed to steal the Baron here. The approach to the team fight is great, and you can see Jadran, his goal is to get that Baron, but the Eat is blocked by the Kindred ultimate. He manages to secure it, and then the team fight is won thanks to not only some really strong play from Energy in the backline, but Kakan on this Maokai was absolutely massive at just soaking up the pressure and keeping them trapped in the pit. So a dire situation MNM were put into, but they managed to come out ahead and once more save themselves from that relegation spot for now.
And I just want to say one thing because it completely went unnoticed. Frosk got the W in her prediction due to that. I just wanted to mention that. Superior analyst for sure.
That is no.
Yeah, that is literally the case. We were all for Nordavind and only Frost had gone for Godsent. So
she just knew. She quite clearly just knew. She just knew what was going to happen from the very get-go. Right, guys, we have got... let's look at the standings. Let's take a look at where we are in the league as of now. Again, we can give some context to this discussion. As you can see, BTXL, Riddle, and Nordavind from 1st to 4th, even though Ents have a game left to play and is obviously up against BTXL, they cannot, due to tiebreaker rules, get any further ahead than 5th at this point in time. Team Singularity will end the split on just 1 win. So have a look over at Division B, because we still have some games to go for Division B tomorrow. And you'll be able to see that Fnatic up at the top with 1 game left to play. They'll be taking on MNM, which is going to be an absolutely spicy matchup for MNM tomorrow. Munster, Tricked, Dusty, and Barrage, with Munster and Tricked locked in, and I think it's still up in the air. I'm not sure if Dusty is 100% locked in here. I'll have to get some confirmation from my analysts, but there's still a lot to play for between Dusty, Barrage, and MNM right now, and that's where a lot of those games tomorrow are going to become incredibly important.
Yeah, so the thing that can happen is we have a matchup between Dusty and Barrage tomorrow. Barrage already lead the head-to-head. If they win that game, then they'll be tied in score, but 2-0 head-to-head. So Barrage goes straight to that 4th place match. But there's still a possibility for MNM to catch up and force a tiebreaker, but they would have to beat Fnatic Rising. So obviously a lot of expectations there. The rest of the group is decided, as you said, Munster, Tricked. And then the one Group A match we have between XL and Ents it does impact some things throughout the group. It impacts the first place spot. If XL lose, then Riddle take first. And also, if Ents win, then Nordavind get third and Godsent go fourth. But if they don't win, then Nordavind and Godsent have to play a tiebreaker for those spots. So although we've got a lot of things locked in, Group B is still pretty heavily up in the air. And Group A, there's a couple of little changes that could come through.
Yeah, and you said we've got 4 more games left tomorrow. The start of the day will be BTXL versus Ents. Then we'll have Munster versus Tricked, which will be an important game for Group B. Dusty versus Barrage, as which Orc said is essentially who gets playoff and who doesn't. And then Fnatic Rising versus M&M for if M&M, I think pending results, potentially avoid relegation if they can win that match. So there is a lot on the line tomorrow. We have 4 really hype games to close things out. We're going to say goodbye for now, but don't actually go anywhere because we have a little surprise for you after the broadcast is over. But we'll see you tomorrow.
We fought so hard to tend the gardens, fought strong and lonely hearts. The roofs are falling under the bulls, left in the summer.
Okay, so these are going to be like 5 seconds long or something about that, right? What do you want me to say?
You're done. That's what's your 5 seconds.
Let the sparks fly into a summer night. We're going eye to eye, running to the future blind.